Thank you. I could just give a big, long-winded introduction, but I'm just going to get straight into it. If you have questions, you can ask me afterwards. So, I was cleaning out my garage, which I have to do a lot because I have a lot of dogs. I make lots of messes in my garage and tear through things. But I found my old jump logbook, and I looked through it. And to my credit, I have 118 jumps as a SEAL. So I came to the SEAL teams to do what most guys in the SEAL teams wanted to do. Just kick down doors, blow stuff up, and bad guys, you know, bad things. I don't know if we have children in here, but yeah. So for the bad guy part, blowing stuff up, doing cool stuff, you know, just doing cool stuff and wanting to challenge yourself. And that's how I originally came in. But as I was in, I started to notice that there was something even more that I liked, which was not just taking out bad guys, but it's making sure that all my brothers came home. And one thing that I noticed was these dogs. And Jean's not actually a SEAL dog, but she's a great dog. We'll get into her in a little bit. But I started to notice that these dogs were doing incredible things. They were saving lives. And guys didn't even know how many lives they were saving, because when you find an IED, how many lives did you just save? It's kind of hard to tell. When you find a cache of explosives with 10,000 pounds of explosives, how many lives were just saved? You don't really know. So after a deployment, I was really interested in the dog teams, and I had a couple friends that actually went to the dog teams, because a couple of reasons. Dogs are cool. You know where you're going, because every single dog team guy knows where they're going. You're going to go to the most kinetic, dynamic spot in the world, which is it's going to be Afghanistan at the time. That could change the next couple of years, you know, but at the time it was Afghanistan. You knew where you're going to go. So that was kind of a cool thing. And I was like, dogs they sound kind of cool. I'd kind of like to see what that's all about. So I went to my senior chief. I asked him. I was like, hey, what would it take to go to dog teams? He's like, well, I'll look into it for you. I'll get back with you. I'm like, all right. Where are you going? No? Awesome. Gene, here. Gene girl. Come here. Come here. Gene, here. Come here. Come here. Yeah, thank you. Gene, here. You ever bring your kid to an event? That's kind of what it's like. Thank you. Give you picture time later. So my senior chief comes back and he says, sorry, we can't let you go. Dog teams are full, billets are full, and we need you to be a fire team leader for this next deployment. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not like heartbroken. We're still going to Afghanistan. We're still going to do great things. So I was like, shucks, all right. So we start doing our workup, going through all our checks in the box, doing our pre-deployment stuff. And I get a little phone call, and it's my senior chief again. And he says, hey, come up to the office. I have to talk to you about something. Usually when that happens, you're like, I hope we didn't know what I did last weekend, so I hope no one saw me there. But so I go up there, and he's like, hey, the dog teams, they're expanding. They need 4 new handlers very soon. I'm like, okay, well, all right, let's maybe I'll figure out what this is all about. Maybe I'll look into it and see if I want to do it. I'm like, how long do I have to decide? He said, about 5 minutes. Because he said that they needed a name by the end of the day, and I was the top name on the list. And if I said no, he had to go to the next names on the list, and he had to give them a name by the end of the day. So at that point, I kind of took that leap of faith. Heart kind of started to race a little bit. I'm like, okay. So that's really the moment that this next transition, my story kind of happens, where the next day, I'm at the dog teams. And it's not really that far away. It's literally across the street. So it's not like I had an epic journey to go on to get there, but it's a whole other world where the first day I showed up, they have the seasoned handlers that have been there doing dog stuff for a little while, and you have the trainers that are kind of sizing you up. They know you're a SEAL, so they know what you've been through and what you're all about. But just because you like shooting stuff and blowing stuff up doesn't mean you're going to love 90-pound land sharks. So the first day, we do something called catching dogs, which catching dogs sounds fun. It's like, wee, catch. No, you're actually getting bit by the dog. So you're in a bite suit, so you do have that going for you. But you get bit by every single dog in the kennel, which at the time was about 12 or 14 dogs. And when you start feeling your bones start to compress and bend under the bite suit, on the 14th dog, you usually have one of two different reactions. You're either like, this is not for me, or you're like, that was freaking cool. I'll let you guys decide which reaction I had. Might have been a little both. So, I hung around the dog teams. It's kind of like an apprenticeship where you have to learn basic dog stuff, They literally give you a leash and teach you leash handling without a dog, You're like, air dog. And then you start learning, and then I got my first dog. My first dog was actually named Cujo. It's a very fitting name. And I learned a lot with Cujo. Cujo was awesome. He was a little 55-pound beast of a dog. And he'd been training for a few months. He's been progressing. I was learning. And we were getting ready to go to the handler course. So the handler course is actually an 8-week program that you have to go through to be qualified to be a handler. And you do. You learn a lot of stuff there. The dog learns a lot of stuff there. We were packed. We were ready to go. During this time, a new training staff kind of transitioned over, and they did an evaluation of all our dogs, and they kind of made the determination that my 55-pound dog wasn't big enough to be a SEAL dog. And I'm like, you guys knew he was 55 pounds this whole time. He wasn't going to grow or shrink. You guys are going to wait till the day before the handler course to tell me this. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry, we have another dog for you to take. I'm like, where? They're like, the little skinny, emaciated-looking puppy over there. I'm like, sweet, thank you. Oh, and by the way, he has about a 50-50 shot of actually making it through the handler course because we're not really quite sure. He has a great nose, but he's just the youngest dog we've ever selected. He's only 10 months old, and we're not sure how he's going to end up. So I said, okay, well, you're not leaving me with many options, so sweet. So I spent the night in the kennel. I packed the night before. I was already packed and ready to go, so I spent the night in the kennel and slept with the dog. I was like, cards are kind of stacked against us, but you know what? I don't care how much work it's going to take. We're going to make this work. And he looked at me, and didn't really say much because he can't talk. But it was a good night. Hung out. It was a little cold in the kennel, but he learned one thing that night. He learned how to sit. And because previous to this, he actually didn't know how to do anything. He didn't even know his name. His name was Ito. So that's him a little bit bigger, but we flew to the handler course. The handler course is on the East Coast. And all the other guys there kind of had dogs they'd already been working with for a few months, and some of these dogs had actually already been through a handler course. So these dogs were actually pretty seasoned dogs, looking pretty good. And then I had Ito, who just learned how to sit. So upon landing in Virginia, the dogs get unloaded off the plane, and we could smell them before we saw them. Meaning that somebody did not have quite a good flight because somebody went to the bathroom in their crate, and you could smell it getting closer and getting closer. And then you could see the crates, and all the handlers, there's 3 other guys with me, we looked at each other, we were all thinking the same thing. I hope that's not my dog. Well, since I'm telling this story, I'm sure you guys can guess, yes, that was Ito. On his virgin voyage across the country to the East Coast, he was covered in crap. So I spent the first night hosing him down and washing him, and I knew that it could only get better from there. So that was the good news. So 8 weeks goes by, and we started off as the worst dog team there. We were by far the worst. We're awesome, but we were the worst dog team in that he didn't know anything, I was still learning, and combined, we were tripping over each other and just learning each other, but I knew we were behind, so what I did was, every night, when everybody put their dogs up, I kept my dog out, took him back to my hotel room, and we kept practicing, kept training every single night. And little by little, we started catching up and catching up until finally we weren't catching up anymore. We were actually doing better than most of the other dog teams there. We were finding aids with 100% accuracy, and it was a great thing. But in all honesty, at the time, I didn't really see that as anything special. I just thought that's what we were supposed to do. So after the handler course, back to San Diego, and we continued training. The one reason why SEAL dogs are able to be so good is that we have the time to put into them, where our job every day, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever it may be, is training your dogs. And if you were like me and trained your dog after work, you took it home with you and slept with them over your house every single night, and training never stopped just at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, then that's why our dogs were so good, is that we had the time and the resources to put into them, Well, next part comes deployment time. I'm sure this is what you guys all want to hear, That's us right there anyway. I'm sure you can guess. So on deployment, the dog's there for a reason, Yes, he's like your best friend that you spent all this time training with, but he's there as an asset to save lives. And so, as much as you love him, you have to know that the reason why he's there is to save lives. So his life is not above your brother's next to you. In that, I read every single after-action report from every single canine team, whether it be conventional or unconventional, SEAL, Special Forces, MARSOC, regular Army, Air Force, and some of the problems that some handlers have had is making that emotional decision to go after their dog if their dog ever got shot, if their dog was in trouble. And before anything ever happened, I kind of went through scenarios in my mind I have to make sure that if anything bad happens, I never put my brother's lives in danger to save my dog. And you would think oh, okay, well, what if I just risk my life for my dog? Well, what happens when you risk your life? Who's coming for you? Every single one of your brothers is going to risk their life to save you. So you have to keep a little bit of an emotional barrier between your dog and yourself. So something that kind of happened to me every single night. I had a dream that my dog would either get shot or blown up every night on deployment. And they've gone away. Everything's good now. But I think that was a way of me coping with the reality of what it could be in the event it ever happened, and doing it before it happened. If that makes any sense. So deployment time comes. We had a great deployment. Everything went fine. We found any aid. No one got blown up by any IEDs. It was great. We had 2 really talented EOD techs. They did a great job. And we came home safe. And so that's how I judge a good deployment. Everyone comes home safe, After deployment, my goal was to stay at the dog teams as long as I could, because I finally found what I love doing. I found my niche. We were doing great, and I wanted to keep doing this. And after some time at the dog teams, I elected to get a surgery done to take care of an injury that was, I guess, a lingering injury, one that wasn't life-threatening, but we all get these. If you're a team guy or a boat guy, I'm sure you've had a couple surgeries. And I was assured that going to the surgery, that when I came out and did my rehab, that my dog would still be mine and everything would be fine. Well, I go into surgery, I come out of surgery, and day 1 of rehab, I get told, by the way, we're giving your dog to another handler. I'm like, excuse me? Well, another handler's dog failed out of the program a mere couple days before he was supposed to deploy. So their plan was to give the most qualified, best dog they had to a rookie green handler and make that a good match. And actually, in theory, it actually is a good solution. You have a seasoned dog and a brand new handler. And as much as I didn't like it, I had to agree that it was the right choice to do. So I instantly knew what I had to do, and it sucked because the emotional part of us, we want to go back to the kennel and be like, hey, I know you're working with somebody else, but can we hang out? The problem with that is we can hang out later, I promise. But when the stakes are that high with our dogs, if I give the dog to somebody else and I'm still in the picture, that interferes with the bond that he's supposed to be getting with the new handler. So, as much as it sucks, I got told that, and I knew what I had to do without even being told to do it, but I couldn't ever see Ito again until he was retired, essentially. And there wasn't really a goodbye. It wasn't really me going to the kennel and saying my byes. It was the other handler just had him. So he went to bed one night and I was there, and the next day he woke up and I was gone. And it wasn't that easy, but sometimes things that hurt the most, you have to do them because you know it's the right thing to do. So now I'm waddling around on crutches for a few months and dogless, and come to find out I'm not going to be staying at the dog teams anymore. So now I have to pick orders, and all this compiled on top of one another, and I'm just like, you know what? If I'm not doing what I love to do, why am I still here? And my enlistment was up, so that's when I made the decision to get out. And I made the decision to get out, and once I made that decision, I knew I was getting out. It was the what to do when you get out part that I was still kind of struggling with. So, little background, I already had 2 degrees, a political science degree and a history degree. And I felt like, well, the next step is like another degree, right? That's what all the cool kids are doing. So I did. I started studying for the LSAT, and I was going to go to law school. And I was going to be like, you know what? Let's go to law school and pursue that. Because every single person I mentioned it to just said, that's a great idea. No one's going to say education sucks and don't do it. So I kept listening, and I kept preparing, and I kept going in that direction. And but I was still feeling lost and lonely and alone. So I started helping friends with their dogs. So I started reaching out to other handlers that were having issues with their dogs, and I would help them with their issues. And I started having friends and family and hitting me up with issues with their dogs. And I just volunteered my time. So at the time, I started doing free training in the park, Balboa Park. I did a little Facebook meetup. Maybe I've seen some of you there, I don't know. But I just started doing it for fun and just having people that needed me. And that felt good. To have a purpose and to have someone who values your skills and what you do. And I kept doing that for a little while, and then before you know it, people started paying me. I was like, okay. I mean, if you insist. And while this is going on, this is where I exited out of the Navy. So now I'm a civilian, and I'm kind of like, what to do? So I keep training dogs, but I just thought of as a hobby that started making me money, a little bit of money. Wasn't getting rich, wasn't on my yacht yet. Still waiting on that. So I'm training dogs in the park and taking on clients now, and I'm like, you know what? I guess I have clients. I should probably have like a business account. You can tell I took a lot of business classes before this. And then, along the line, I'm like, well, I should probably get an LLC. And like, what is an LLC? People keep telling me about this thing. So then I do that. And then, so I guess before you know it, I actually had a business. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I have a hobby business. But then along the line, I kind of realized I don't want to be a lawyer. Like, I just wanted like another certificate to put on my refrigerator. I wanted something else to hang on a magnet for mom to like give me a smiley face for. It seemed like a good idea, but I think I was just trying to one up myself. I was like, Navy SEAL, bachelor degree times 2, law degree, neurosurgeon, astronaut. I don't know. Where do you go from there? I don't know. But I kind of found that I just kept doing what I wanted to do, and if what I love to do is helping other people as well, then why not keep doing that? So that's when I decided just to go all in. And I was like, dogs is what I'm doing. So this is all kind of happening just within a couple months, but I'm still feeling like I'm missing something. I am missing something. I don't have a dog, you know? So I go where everyone goes, the internet, and I just type in Google, like, rescue dogs. And I just start scrolling through them. I'm not even looking at where they're from. I think I put California, which is really specific. And I start scrolling through these pictures and I see, oh, that's actually Ito. I forgot about the slides, sorry guys. That's another picture of him. We can go back to that one later if you want. Go ahead. Oh yeah, I'm really sucky at the slide thing. That's me getting surgery. No more, there we go. That's the face we're looking for. So that's the first night we actually had her in the house. So I see a picture of Jean and I immediately email and I get a phone call back. And they're like, okay, here's all the things that are wrong with her. And it was a long list. And then they're like, well, this is all the people that tried to adopt her that failed. I'm like, oh really? And they're thinking this is like deter me, but that actually made me like want to adopt her more. And I was like, sweet. Quitters. So I drive up to Santa Barbara and I take a look at Jean, and I actually, I know how to test dogs, so I put her through a test, and I knew within 5 minutes I was taking her. But I still had to kind of convince the people giving me the dog to give me the dog. They were like, I don't know, I mean, she's kind of a tough dog to handle, and like she's really has some behavior issues, and 3 other people tried to adopt her and it failed, and so eventually I had to lay down the Navy SEAL dog handler card, and they were like, oh, here's the dog. Yeah, we're talking about you. So we drive down, and along the way we have to stop and get gas, and we stop into a gas station, and I open up the back of my car, and I look at Jean, and she kind of looked at me, like, weirdo, who's this guy driving me? And I say, Jean, I don't care how hard we have to work, we're gonna make this work. I said the same thing to her that I said to Ito. So, a few months later, I had a different dog, in that Jean was the complete opposite kind of dog that Ito was. Where, as much as Ito was like an emaciated looking puppy, he was hand selected from the best dogs in the world to be selected for training. Jean was like top 10 America's worst dogs. So I had to learn how to train dogs from a completely different angle. And in doing that helped me. And that if we just stay comfortable and just keep doing the same thing, you're never really gonna get better at anything else. So challenging myself with Jean was one of the best things that I ever did for myself. And then it gave me purpose, and then with that, I was able to help so many more people. Where other people with their dog issues, now I have the confidence to be able to help them with theirs, They're like, oh, my dog won't stop barking. I'm like, my dog tried to eat me. Easy. So, I guess for my little story here, a couple things that I like to take from it. I usually say I like to take one thing, but I'll give you at least 2 things. I'm feeling generous. One, sometimes we have to do the uncomfortable things because it's the right thing to do. It's not the easy thing. The easy thing would have been for me to keep saying hi to Ito, hang around, give him some pets, give him some love. I did it because I knew it was the right thing to do, And 2, if you find your niche like that, then you never have to work a day in your life. It might be hard work, and there's days that it's really hard work, but I never have to work. I enjoy every day. Thank you very much.